Hi folks, welcome to another video. This is about a watch that I've picked up, and it's a very interesting piece. I've been trying to get one of these for quite a long time, and I finally found one at a good price. I paid just under $200 US, including shipping and taxes. It's just about 300 Australian. It's a Jaquet Droz or Jaquet Droz mechanical Swiss watch, and it's from the 1960s, probably the late 1960s. Could be slightly off, it could be early 70s, but I estimate late 60s. It was sold as if it had a linen dial, but I'm not sure how we're going to pick this up in the current lighting. But I think it's actually a metallic dial with sort of a cross hatch brushing applied to it. So it does look like a linen dial, but it's not actually linen. There you go, I think you can just kind of see that there. 17 dual automatic movement. We have the date, aperture at the 3 position, and we have T Swiss T written right down the bottom of the dial. So it's a tritium lume dial that didn't come out until the 60s, and this iteration of Jaquet Droz didn't come out until the 1960s either, so it can't possibly be earlier than the 60s. And of course the styling tells us it's either 60s or 70s. It's kind of like a proto-dolphin case. It's kind of a hybrid between a dolphin and a cushion case. So not quite reaching that design, the height of the design arc that was reached in the 70s with those sort of longer lugs and more elongated shapes. So is it cushion case or dolphin? I'll leave that up to you. Anyway, it's gold plated to 10 microns, so decent gold plate. Not as thick as gold capped. And yeah, it's in very good condition, and it's on a Milanese bracelet, and again gold plated. I always describe that as sort of a Hollywood Regency style bracelet. Not sure that term really existed back then when this watch was made. No scratching on the brushed finish clasp. It's almost as if this watch has not really been worn. There are some like dings and scratches, but that could just be from 50 odd years of being stored and moved around. There's no sort of debris in the spring bars, no dead skin cells or any of that nasty stuff. And with these, you also want to look for the details of the gold plating. It's written between the lugs. It'll tell you how thick it is. If it's there, it's not always there. It's just on some watches. Screw on case back. I've been reading about this company. I had thought they only made watches with Bosch movements. That is to say, movements provided by other manufacturers, but it turns out some of their watches actually had in-house movements. This brand was basically a creation of a big conglomerate of, it was kind of like a watchmaking collective of 150 small manufacturers who needed to pool resources to be competitive back in the 60s. And this name had just come up for sale, basically. There was another business that had the rights to it. Jaquet Droz was a automata and watch manufacturer, or clock manufacturer at least, back in the 1700s. And so, yeah, they revived it. They bought the name in the 60s. I think it was 1963 or so. And yeah, so one of the 150 companies would make hands, or probably several of them. Some would make dials, some would make movements or parts of movements, some would make cases, some probably made bracelets and the like. And so they ended up with a huge variety of watches. Some may have made entire watches and they're marketed under this name, but there do seem to be some really nice like vintage pieces under this name with the arrow logo there. And yeah, this one's, I just liked the linen finish to the dial, and it was just in such good condition. I'm all about getting a dial in good condition or with nice patina. So this one doesn't really have patina, but it's very well preserved. So what I'm going to do next is open up the case and see if it has an embouche movement or an in-house. If I can tell, I'll have to look carefully for a mark. It's probably going to be an embouche movement, possibly by Shield or something like that. And And yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. I'll be right back. And just one other comment, and that's the thickness or lack of thickness. 12.0 millimeters for a watch with an automatic movement, 47-hour power reserve, domed crystal, and a date function. I mean, they just don't make watches that thin anymore. I don't know why, but I really appreciate watches that are no thicker than they need to be. Okay guys, here she is ticking away. We've got the case back off. It came off quite easily. And it's an embouchure movement. It's an ETA 2783. 25 dual movement. I think I said it was 17 dual before. That was a mistake. It's not actually written on the dial. And that's the automatic rotor there. And that winds the watch in both directions, which is cool. So yeah, not an in-house movement. I wouldn't have minded an in-house just as a collector, but if I could have chosen any movement manufacturer, any embouchure manufacturer, it would have been ETA. They make really good movements. They're super well regarded. And there's plenty of them about, so easy to pick up parts. You could replace this whole movement if the watch ever stopped working. So yeah, 47-hour power reserve, which is quite impressive. The beat rate is, I think, 21,600. I was just reading about it, so a little bit slower, and that probably gives it the slightly longer than normal power reserve. So yeah, for a watch from the 60s or 70s, that's pretty good. The movement came out in 1969. One site says 1974, but the RANT site says 1969. Made, I think, up until about 76. It could, on reflection, I think this style of bracelet might be a bit of a hint that it's actually made in the 70s rather than the 60s. So let's say it's probably an early 70s watch, most likely, although the movement may permit it to be from the 70s. Look, very clean, ticking away beautifully. I did check the time on it yesterday, in just over a few hours it kept perfect time. I haven't done full day's test with it, but yeah, and you can wind the movement via the crown. So guys, an ETA automatic with almost a 2-day power reserve by a very interesting company. This version of the company doesn't exist anymore. They went out of business somewhere around 83. Apparently their last ad in a certain magazine was from 1977, so somewhere around that period they sort of succumbed to the quartz crisis. They were very successful for a time, with over 1,000 and even 2,000 models available. And they're often very high quality pieces, dive watches, chronographs, alarm watches, so they're probably quite well regarded in their day. Not sure what the pricing was like. Yeah, ETA, very respectable movement manufacturer. So I'll get this case back on and we'll have one last look at the watch. Just one other observation, folks. There are no numbers inscribed into the case back, which you normally see on vintage watches. You normally do see numbers, is what I'm saying. That suggests it might never have been serviced, which suggests it might not have ever really been worn all that much.